Hello, friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. We're live. Today I'm going to be building a web scraper with Node.js. Awesome. Let's get into this. Okay, so here's the idea. I want to essentially build an app that scrapes the data from IMDB. So I'm going to write some code that essentially makes a request for a search for a movie, and then I'll pull out all the titles of the movies and the images and the year and essentially turn that into a JSON object that I could use in a front-end app. And then for any given movie, I want to scrape this page and pull off the poster of the movie, maybe the rating, not only the star rating, the theater rating, the genre, the plot, maybe even the cast. But essentially, I'm going to write code that picks out those things and then turns it into a JSON object so I could use it in some other project. So let's get started. What I did was I'll start from scratch. So on IMDb, you can search for something. So I'll search for Star Wars. And by default, it searches titles, names, keywords, all kinds of stuff. I want to be very specific. So I want to build something that only scrapes for movies. So if I go to category search, you'll notice that changes the URL up here to only search for movies. And so essentially this URL is what I want to use to search for things. So instead of Star Wars, if I search for Fight Club in the URL, I should get back just the movies that match that search, whether or not it is Fight Club. I guess our top result is Fight Club, but it shows some other stuff in there too. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to programmatically write code that picks out the different pieces of the app. So if we look at the element inspector and we look at this title, you'll notice that this table represents all of the results, and that has a class of find list. And then inside of there's a body, and essentially every single result is inside of a table row, and then each result has a image, and then also some actual text, and then a link to the actual page. And so essentially I'm going to make a request for this page and then programmatically pick out those parts and make an API with it. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a directory. Let's call it IMDB scraper. And in this directory, I will initialize it as a node project. So if I do npm init-y, creates a package JSON so I can install some dependencies. I'm going to be using a node-fetch to make the requests. So if you're familiar with fetch in the browser, it's exactly the same thing, but I can actually use it on the server side. So I'm going to install that. And then I'll create just an index.js file. That's where my initial scraping code is going to go, at least. And then we'll open this directory inside of Atom. It's there. Yeah. Cool. So in index.js, I'm just going to bring in fetch. And so that was from the node-fetch library. And now I'm just going to start playing around with it. So I want to make a request against this URL. So first I'll just go ahead and do that. So let's say URL equals, let's say URL equals that in quotes. And then we can kind of pick this out. So right there is the search term. So let's do this. If I say and q equals, and essentially we can just put the thing we're searching for on the end of that. So let's make a function search movies, and we take in a search term, and then we're actually going to use fetch. So I'll fetch against that URL, and then we just want to put the search term on the end of that, which will make a request for the search results of that movie. Then we get back the response, and here we actually want to turn the response into text. A lot of times when you're dealing with APIs, you turn it into JSON, but in our case, it's just HTML. So if I use this text method, it's going to give me back the actual HTML body. And then let's just return that. And so right down here, if I say search movies for Star Wars, and then I should get back like the body of the page. This is my break timer. We're just getting started, but look away from the screen. Take a quick stretch. Get ready to learn about some scraping. Cool. And I'm just going to log the body. So essentially, I have written code that is going to make a request to IMDb for a specific movie and then just log out all the HTML to the console. So let's see that. So if I actually run this file, it makes the request and then just spits out all of the HTML from the page. So now what I need to do is essentially pick out of that HTML the things that I care about. And for that, I'm going to use a thing called Cheerio. So Cheerio is a server-side library that has a very similar API. I think it's almost the exact same API as jQuery, but you can actually use it inside of server-side code. So yeah, you kind of just do it like this. You bring Cheerio in, you then load an HTML string, and then you have access to all of the jQuery methods you know and love to extract some stuff out of that HTML. So I am going to do that. So in this folder, I'm going to install Cheerio. And then we'll use it. So up at the top here, I'll also bring in Cheerio. And let's look at their API. So you do $ equals cheerio.load, and then you pass in the HTML. So I'm going to do that and then pass in the body. And then you can actually use $ to access elements. So the things I want are essentially anything with the class find result. And I can actually test that out locally. I know this page has jQuery, so if I say, give me all the things that have the class find result, it's 79 items, and then each one represents a search result. So let's do this same thing, but in our code. So we'll do get all the find results, and then say each one will have a function. I believe you have access to this. I don't know. Let's just see. If I log this.text content, maybe I have to do this.text. I don't know. We'll see. So if I run this code again, now instead of logging the body, it's going to say undefined. Yeah, because there is no text content. Can I do text? Text is not a function. I believe I have access. Will it pass me the element? Let's see if I can do element.text. No. But let's say, we'll say $element equals Cheerio load the element. Then we'll say $element.text. What do we get? A whole lot of nothing. This is going very well. Let's look at their API real quick. See what I can do. I know there is an each method. You can do like a dot each, because essentially I want to go over. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's a function that takes the index and then the element. But I should be able to throw this. Let's see. So this is index and then element. And then if I throw element into the selector, that should give me something back. Let's see. Run the code. Hey, look at that. So I made the request to the page and then essentially extracted out the text of each search result. Very cool. But let's inspect that further, because I don't want to just plain old grab the text. I want to be very precise. So if I select the image, then I can actually grab the source. So let's do this. So let's say image is equal to our element.find. So now we're searching within this specific result, and I'll say element.find, and I want to find a TD, then an A, and then an image. And so that should give me the image. And then let's just log image dot attr, so get the attribute src. And so hopefully this will grab the poster. Yeah, so this grabs the poster URL of each image result. So we got the image. What else do we need? We also want to grab the title. So if I do, so class result text dot, well, result text with an A. So let's say const $title is equal to, we want to find the TD with the class result text and then the A that descends it. So we want to do TD class of result underscore text, the A, and then we'll grab the text of that. And then I guess the year comes after that. What would be a good way to grab the year? I think I'm just going to grab the image and the title. So let's do this. Let's say we first start off with movies, which is just an empty array. And then for each one, we're going to create a movie, which has an image, which is equal to $image.attr src. So that grabs the source of the image. And then I also want the title, which is going to be title.text. Cool. And then here we'll say movies.push movie. And right there, I should be able to log movies, and we'll have a nice JSON object of all the results. So let's do it. Boom! So now instead of just getting back a bunch of just like HTML, now I have some like structured JSON, which has a title and an image. Very cool. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna throw this into an Express route so I can like make a request and then just get back this JSON data from Express. Cool, let's do that. First, let's move this into a separate file. So let's call this movies.js. Let's call it scraper.js. We'll move this search movies functionality, basically all of this, we're going to move this into scraper.js. And instead of calling search movies, essentially I want to put this after this.then, because we'll parse it as text and then we grab the body, and then instead of logging movies, I'm just going to return movies. And so now elsewhere I can call this function and just get back an array of movies. So right here I'm just going to say module.exports equals search movies. And that's going to make it available to the outside world, so I could like use it inside of an Express route. So let's install Express. Cool. And then we'll just create a basic Express app. So we'll bring in Express. We'll create an app. We'll listen on a port. So port is going to be equal to process.env.node.env. No, process.env.port, sorry. Or port 3000. And then we're going to make this app listen on that port. We have a callback function where we can just say listening on Galvanize says, what a handsome man. Thank you so much, Galvanize. I'm curious who that is, because it could be literally anybody I work with logged in on the Galvanize account. Cool. So we're creating the Express app. We're going to listen on port, and we'll just create a basic get route. So when you get /recres, we're just going to return nice little object with a message that says scraping is fun. Cool. So got my basic Express app. I will go ahead and install nodemon. Nodemon. npm install nodemon. And after that gets added, cool. So first I'm just gonna have a start script. So this is just gonna say node index.js. So when the app to start the app, we run that file. But in development, we just want to do nodemon and then index.js. Cool. So now I can do npm run dev. That should start up my server, listening on 3000. So in the browser, if I go to localhost 3000, scraping is fun. So we got back some data. Awesome. So let's make a search route. So let's just do app.get/search. And essentially the URL might look like this. So like search, actually let's do this, search/title. So you search for the title of a movie. So our URL might look like /search/Star Wars or /search/Fight Club or /search/Office Space. Could be literally anything, but then we'll use that title to actually do the scraping. So in this file, I'm going to bring in our scraper that we created. So let's say scraper equals require relative path to that scraper file. And here's what we want to do. When we get a request to /search, we're going to say scraper.searchMovies. We'll pass in rec.params.title. So this will be whatever was in the title. And then we should get back some movies. And then we'll just res.json the movies. Cool. And just like that, if I do /search/Star Wars, we get back an array of movie results. So they have titles, they have images. Fun times. Let's also see, so one other thing we might want is the actual link to the movie itself. So you'll notice on the anchor tag, so like when I click this, it takes me to the actual movie page. And I want to grab that ID right there so we know essentially how to make the request for this specific movie. So let's also add that in our scraping. So over in my scraper, right here, this is grabbing the text of the title, but we want to grab the href attribute and parse it. So let's say this. So we'll say href is going to be our title dot attribute href. And then we essentially want to grab it out. So let's take a look at this. So let's say like URL is equal to that thingy. And if I say URL dot match, I'm going to do a regular expression that basically pulls out the ID from this URL. So I want to match, we'll do title / and I need to escape that / 0 or more things followed by another / and then I'll escape that /. So let's match that. And you'll notice the first parameter in that array is the actual IMDB ID, and that's what I want. So we're going to match that at 1. And let's call this IMDB ID. And we'll throw that in our result as well. Cool. So now when I make a request for movies, hopefully, if it doesn't break, we also get the IMDB ID of each individual movie. Very cool. Now let's make an endpoint that gives us all the information about a specific movie. So let's say we have a GET request against /movie /IMDB ID. Then we basically want to say scraper.getMovie with rec.params.imdb ID. Then we'll get back a single movie and we'll return it. Cool. But I need to define this getMovie function. So let's do it. So going to create a function get movie that takes in an IMDb ID. And then it's going to do a very similar thing. Be a little bit different. But we'll make a fetch against... Actually, we need a different URL. It's my break timer. Take a quick stretch. Ooh. Take a drink of your LaCroix, which will look very weird because it's the same color as my green screen. It's floating. Weird. Okay, so yeah, I need a new URL actually. So if we look at whenever we request the URL for a movie, this is what the URL will look like. So let's call this, well, let's rename this to search URL. And then I want another variable for movie URL, and that's going to be equal to that. And essentially, we just append the IMDb ID to the end of that, and we should be able to get that. So movie URL with IMDb ID on the end of that. And then we should get back the body. And for now, let's just res.json. Oh, no. Yeah, why not? res.json, and then we'll just throw the body in there. So we're going to send back a JSON object that has... oh, no, never mind. Sorry. Let's just log the body in our console so we'll see it come through, and we'll return the body. So now if we actually do hit this endpoint, we're actually just going to get back some HTML. Let's do that. Return an object that has a body property. So now if we try to get episode 4, I can do /movie/IMDb ID. Get movie is not a function. I have to export it. So down here, make sure we export that. And then try again. Something happened. Okay. So it's making the request for the movie, but right now it's just a bunch of HTML. Let's kind of go through the same process we did before to pick out some information. So let's look at this title. We'll notice that it's in a class of title wrapper, and it is an H1 and has some text inside of it. So if we do Mr. jQuery, please give me the thing that has the class title wrapper, and I want the H1 inside of it, and then grab the text of that. That gives me the title of the movie, but I actually don't want the year on the end of it. Let's look again. Yeah, so the H1 has that span inside of it. Is there a way to just grab the text of an element, but not the child elements of an element? I don't know. Let's see. Let's do cheerio get text without child elements. Get text in parent without children using cheerio. That's exactly what I want to do. .first, .contents, .filter, grab the thing that is the text. Looks interesting. I think I can do this with jQuery too. So if I do that and then throw that on the end of it, lame. That did absolutely nothing. Let's try it just inside of inside the route though. Maybe cheerio is a little bit different. So we'll create our $, which is cheerio.load, and we pass in the body. Body. And then we'll go ahead and say const title is this title wrapper H1, And then let's do const title is going to be $ title with all of this stuff on there. So we'll do $ title dot first. And then now let's just return an object that has a title property. Let's see what happens. So now if I go to localhost 3000/movie/IMDB ID, cool, we grab the title. It's got a bunch of weird space on the end, so let's trim it. So I can do text.trim, and that should get rid of the extra space. Cool, so we grab the title. What else do we want? Let's grab the rating. So if we look at subtext, there's a meta tag. Item prop equals content rating. Here, we can do like a really interesting selector. So we can say, give me the meta tag where the item prop equals content rating, and that should give me that element. And then we want to grab the content attribute. PG. Cool. So that's the code I need. Let's call this const. Well, we'll throw this here. So we grab the title, grab the rating. That's going to be that. Let's throw the rating in there. Let's see what happens. Rating PG. This is fun. So much fun. So we grabbed the rating. Let's also grab the runtime. So it's a time item prop duration. So we can do a very similar selector. So time item prop is duration, and I actually just want to grab the text content of that. Whoa, weird. Two hours and 1 minute, but it's also giving me 121 minutes, 125 minutes. Where is that even coming from? The date time here does say, I think this is like playtime, 121 minutes. Interesting. Let's look at another movie and see what that looks like. React Developer Tools has crashed. Looks like they're using React on IMDb. But let's look at that. Playtime, 98 minutes. I honestly just want that. Maybe we can do the same thing we did with the when we were selecting the header text. Let's try it. So let's say const runtime. It's going to be equal to, and then we basically want to do this same thing to grab only the first text content. Let's see what runtime we get back. And sweet, 2 hours, 1 minute. That's beautiful. It's very nice and clean. Okay, so we got the rating, the runtime. Let's grab the genre. So this is very weirdly formatted. So they are, okay, I got it. So it's anchor tags with spans with item prop genre. So let's do span. Oh, it's gonna be very similar. So span with an item prop of genre, and that's all of them. So what we could do is iterate over them and like grab each value. So let's do that over here. So let's say span item prop genre dot each is a function that's going to give us the index and the element. And let's create an array of genres. Initialize it to empty. And inside of here, we're going to say genre is going to be element. So we wrap it in the cheerio selector. So the element is now a cheerio object or a jQuery object dot text. And then we'll say genres dot push genre. And then we'll return the array of genres. Moment of truth. Look at that! Action, adventure, fantasy. Hello, Jason Michael. This is so much fun. We're scraping the web. Too much fun. So we got the genres, and then let's grab the release date. So this is an anchor tag. Item prop date published. They make this way too easy. So this is a meta. Item prop equals date published. Dot text. Oh no, not dot text. We wanna grab an attribute. What's that attribute? The content attribute. Content. Yeah, that's what I want. Wow. Okay, so we got our genres. We'll call it date published. And that's going to be equal to that. And then we'll return that. Does it work? Yes, it does. May 25th, 1977. Let's grab the IMDB rating. Item prop rating value. Cool. So we want the span with an item prop of rating value. And then we want its text. Too easy. Too damn easy. Okay, so const IMDB rating equals that. We'll pass that in. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we should probably pass in the IMDB ID when we send it back to the front end, just so we have it, or whoever makes this request. So yeah, we got the IMDB ID, the IMDB rating. Let's grab the movie poster. So this is an, yeah, I guess we can just do div class poster a image. So we should be able to do div with a class of poster with an a child with an image child. So that grabs that. Sweet. And then we want the attribute of src. And that is an image. So that's what I want. So let's just call this the poster. It's going to be equal to that. Cool. So now I want to make the request, get that back, and get back the image. I wonder if we can get it bigger, though. Whoa, when I click on it, it's way bigger. I wonder if that's actually in the DOM, though. Let's see. So when I click on it, how do we select this? So this is some serious stuff. So zoom wrap. If we look at the image URL, though, how does that compare to the image URL we got back? So it's the same, is it? NZM. It's the same, but with a slightly different ending piece. So here's my thought. If we take this image and then replace this with that, that's the big image. Could also select it, though. Jason's saying the URL has the IMDB ID, so TT06579. guess I'm not seeing it. I guess I could try to select this. It has a very weird class though on it. Oh, PSWP image. Let's see how many of those are on the page. So go there. The page is making all kinds of requests. Please stop. Stop. Grab the thing with the class PSW image. Nothing. Is this taking us to a new URL? Oh. It is taking us there. Okay, I won't worry about this for now, but later on we might come back so that we actually get a higher resolution image. And I really wish it wouldn't show this. So let's, I think I can turn off errors. Cool. I don't know if you can hear it, but my computer the fans are going crazy. For whatever reason, this IMDB site is taking up a lot of resources. But next thing we want is the plot. So div class summary text. Too easy. So we want the div with the class summary, I think it was underscore text. Yep. And we'll just grab the text of that. Cool. And we'll trim it to get rid of the white space on the edges. Awesome. So over here, we'll say summary is that. And we'll also return the summary. Very cool. Luke Skywalker joins forces with a Jedi Knight, a cocky pilot, a Wookiee, and 2 droids to save the galaxy from the Empire's world-destroying battle station, while also attempting to rescue Princess Leia from the evil Darth Vader. That's a great description. Whoever wrote that's great. Okay, let's grab the director too. This might be curious though, because what about movies that have multiple directors? Is that a thing? I guess I don't know much about movies, but do movies have multiple directors? Anybody know a movie that has multiple directors? Fight Club. It only has one director though. Yeah, okay. We'll grab one if there's multiple. We'll handle that later. So we want span. No. Yeah, so this span item prop equals director. Item type is a person in the text. Let's just see. So if I grab something like that. So span item prop equals director. Cool. And we can just trim that. King Kong has multiple directors? Let's check it out. Break timer. Oh, I realize I'm out of frame. If I'm stretching, I have my camera in a very specific place. Whew. There we go. Yeah, let's look up King Kong. The Big Lebowski? It says Peter Jackson, maybe in the 1976 version. Oh yeah, Coen Brothers. What's a Coen Brothers movie? I will search for Big Lebowski though. Hey, there we go. So this one, I need to filter, get rid of the errors. This one does have multiple directors, but I haven't shown this yet, but the code I'm writing is extremely generic. So right now I've just been testing this with Star Wars. If I throw another ID in there, this will actually still give me back the data for that specific movie, which is awesome. Yeah, it looked like yeah, you were talking about the old King Kong. It looked like that one had, like 1933. Yeah, multiple directors. So let's look at our selector. Like if I'm selecting, like if I do item prop director, it might actually return multiple, I'm thinking. And then we can just iterate over the array instead of only returning a single one. So yeah, there's multiple item prop directors. So did I add that code yet? No. So here, instead of doing just text, we essentially want to do an each on it. And then basically have an array of directors. Does this have a length property? Yeah, so let's do this. Let's say directors equals that, and if they're no, I'm just gonna return a an array of directors, even if there only is one director. It'll make it easier if I'm like using it on the front end. Yeah, there are a ton of Kong movies. King Kong vs. Godzilla. Gojira. Okay, so we kind of want to do the same thing we did with genres. So for each director, we will basically say director is going to be this element dot text, and we'll trim that text, and then we'll have an array of directors, and then we'll push the director into directors, and then we'll add our directors to the array. So now if we get the Big Lebowski, directors Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen, unaccredited. Very cool. And if we throw Kong in there, Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schoedsack. Really weird last name. Not rated. That's fun. But isn't this awesome? Like, I can literally throw any IMDb ID in there, and because the page is structured in the same way, it can just extract out all the information. Let's see what else we might want to add. Let's add writers. Whoa, what just happened? Something weird happened. Cool. Item prop creator are our writers. So we should be able to do the same thing. So item prop creator. That gives me back a few things. So let's say const writers is an array. And then we'll say for each similar function, const writer is going to be this thing, and then we'll push into the writers array. Writers.push writer, and we'll throw the writers on there. RKO Radio Pictures. Interesting. Let's find some other IMDb IDs to test. Let's do Rogue One. Chris Weitz, Tony Gilroy. Lucasfilm. Interesting. I don't see those on the page, but it looks like they're still being selected. Let's copy that. Because if I'm running this here, really? I don't believe you. Span item prop is creator. Weird. I think maybe it was running my code against an iframe or something like that. Oh, interesting. So there are more writers down here. Oh, this is production company. Interesting. So even though this is a production company, it's still listed as the creator. We need to be more specific with our writer selector. So instead of just item prop creator, we want credit summary item as the parent class. So if I do credit summary item, I think that's a class, followed by a span, then it's only 2. That's what we want. Because basically there's multiple things on the page that have that same class. So that was appearing. So now if we do that, we should only see writers and not, so then we don't see production companies. Let's also grab the stars. Item prop actors. My guess is the cast also has the same item prop. Yeah, item prop actor. I don't want to grab the cast just yet. Let's get the stars. I think we might have to do a similar thing. So credit summary item prop actors. Is it actors? Yeah. So I smell a refactor. So like this function is exactly the same for like each one of these. I'm gonna write it one more and then let's refactor it to a function. Stars is an empty array, and then I do that selector with basically this exact same thing, but instead of writer, this is gonna be a star, and we're gonna push into the stars array. We can return the stars too. Directors, writers, stars. Awesome. Oh, it says a comma in it though. I don't like that. Psh. Could I don't care enough to remove it. I could do just like a replace, but my thought is, what if the name actually does have a comma in it? I don't know. Okay, what else do we need? So we have the title, we have the poster, the rating, the date published, the directors, the writers, the stars. What else? So I'm guessing, what is the summary different from the storyline? It is. Let's look at so Rogue One, the daughter of an Imperial scientist, joins the Rebel Alliance in a risky move to steal the Death Star plans. But then the storyline, all looks lost for the rebellion against the Empire as they learn of the existence of a new superweapon, the Death Star. Let's grab the storyline. Item prop description. So div. Oh, so ID story title storyline. So we can actually use that ID. That'll be a good selector. So let's do the thing that has the ID title storyline, and we want to find the div inside of it with the item prop description, and then the paragraph inside of that. So that followed by a div where item prop is description, followed by a p tag. That got it. Cool. And if we do the text of that, that's that. And if we trim it, cool. So let's call this the storyline. That. And then we'll return that to break timer. Again, my floating LaCroix. Cool. Can anyone think of anything else I might want for a movie API? We can get some box office stuff. I think it'd be cool. Yeah, let's do this. Let's grab the budget. It's going to be a tricky one. So, up until now, selecting things has been pretty easy because they have like the exact class that we need, or something like that. Yeah, so a question in the chat: does companies track things using scraping? Probably. And there's probably a terms of service that says you shouldn't do this. This is just for fun. I'm not going to host this API anywhere. But you should read the terms of service of a website. Typically, though, if you're not pounding the site with tons and tons of requests, you're going to go unnoticed because you're going to look like just somebody else browsing the website. And so if I were to actually host this on a server, I would probably cache the requests. So every single time a request comes in, like right now, for this movie with this ID, I'm making a request to IMDB and then scraping it and then sending back the results. You could just scrape it the first time and kind of like cache the results. So that way you're not sending as many requests to the website. But definitely, I would not build a commercial product based off of scraping some really popular website. It is fun though, and especially if you want to have just like a simple project that uses some data from a website. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take my advice. I mean, this is not legal advice. Be cautious and be friendly. Don't make tons and tons of requests. This is going to be extremely hard to target. One trick I haven't been using, if you select an element in the element selector and say copy selector, this will give you a very precise selector to grab that element. So yeah, so this is grabbing the 12th child of title details, but I don't know that every single page, the 12th child is the budget. I don't know that. So that's... But I want that. Let's do a selector on... Oh, weird. Okay, I'm not going to do it. It's too hard because it's going to probably change from page to page. And there's not exactly a precise way of selecting that. Let's do the production companies, though. That'll be the last thing we do. And then maybe I'll build a small front end that uses this API. So there's that. Item prop creator. Again. Oh. Item type is organization. Interesting. Let's do this. So we want a span selector where I've actually never done multiple attribute selectors. Let's just do item type, where item type is organization. And there's 3 of them, and that's each one of those. Cool. So let's grab that, and it's going to be a very similar story to the things we did before. Let's refactor it. So this is a function. Basically, oh, YouTube trailer URL. Yeah, I'll do that next after this refactor. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, so notice each one of these functions It's doing exactly the same thing. Only thing is it's pushing into a different array. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use closures. So I want a function. So let's call this get items. Initially, this is going to take in the item array, and it's going to return a function that does this. But now this is going to be item, and here we're going to say item array dot push item. Okay, really weird syntax, but here's what I can do. Right here, I can say get items with directors, and so this is a cool thing about JavaScript. So this invocation will return this function that still has access to the directors array and then can do that same thing. And then I want to do the same thing with writers. So I'll say get items with writers, and then get items with stars. And if I did it correctly, it should still work. I need a semicolon there. So we should still be able to get directors, writers, stars. Yeah, works beautifully. But now I want to do that same thing on this selector, because this is going to give me all of the, what were they called? Production companies. Yeah, so let's call this companies. So const companies is an empty array. And we want to do that and do the each, but we'll pass in companies. And then we'll return companies in the result. Cool. Lucasfilm, Allison Shearmere Productions. Yeah, and let's try to find the YouTube trailer URL. So trailer. I wonder if it is linked to YouTube or if it's just this. Let's see what happens when I play this.
They call it the Death Star, but they have no idea there's a way to defeat it.
Okay, this is gonna be tricky because I think when I click this, it actually is loading a totally separate URL. I don't know if this is on the same page. Can I close it?
They call it the Death Star.
Shh. Let's just see if this has a selector. Well, if it has a, we might not be able to embed it, but we definitely can add the link to the trailer on IMDb. So item prop equals trailer, and we should be able to grab the href of that. So so this is an anchor tag with item prop trailer. So that didn't work. Oh, item prop, not item type. Okay, I'll check out. So Jason is saying Star Wars A New Hope actually has an embedded YouTube video. Let's see if we can grab that. Otherwise, we'll grab that. So yeah, let's just look at that real quick. Just open a new URL for New Hope. Oh, there are videos down here. Maybe I can grab that. Wow. This is really loud. I'm not seeing. Oh, seat. Oh, yeah. And just to mention, if you are joining for the first time, I do have a poll where you can request videos for me to make or live streams to do, and I will potentially do those things. So you can add options or vote for existing options. I'm actually working on an app where you'll actually have to sign in, because I think a few people actually logged in multiple times and voted for stuff, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, the app is coming soon. Look out for that. I do not see the YouTube embed. I'm not sure. Am I looking in the right place, Jason? YouTube? Or are we thinking this thing? Because I think this right here is technically still just like a video, like an IMDB video embed. I think I'll show that as the last thing. Compti, is that how you say your first name? It might not be your name. But yeah, basically I wrote this scraper, but then I could deploy it, and then we can just call this API from where it's deployed. I'll probably deploy it and then take it down, because I don't want people getting my server in trouble for scraping a bunch of data. But I'll show how to do that, definitely. Jason was wrong. That's okay. It was a fun detour. I think we'll still grab that same URL. So the item prop trailer, and then I want the the href. Yeah, the href, which will take us to the trailer. And I'll have to prepin that with imdb.com, but that's okay. So let's say const trailer is going to be that thingy. And then in our object, the trailer is going to be a template string with the trailer prepended by https://www.imdb.com. That should do it. Let's see what happens. Get the movie. Yeah, so imdb.com, and if I click this,
They call it the Death Star.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Oh, his name means private account in French. Are you streaming or watching from France? Yeah, this is awesome. So here's what I'll do. Okay, let's add a little bit of caching. So basically, if I request the same movie twice, it doesn't have to scrape it twice. It just scrapes it the first time and then sends back the same result. So let's do that. We'll do that inside of the scraper. So let's call this, we'll call this movie cache, and that's just going to be an object. And then we'll call this search cache, and that also will be an object. We'll do the search caching first. So when you make a search from for a term, after we parse it, so before we return the movies here, I'm going to set a property on search cache. So search cache at search term is going to be equal to that array of movies. Cool. And basically, if you call search movies, I'm going to first check and see if there's something in the search cache for the term. We're just going to return that, and we'll do promise.resolve. So the first time you make a search for Star Wars, we'll do the scraping and return that, but we'll store it in memory. And then the second time you do a search for Star Wars, we'll just immediately return that result. And then we'll do the same thing for getting a movie. So after we get the movie, let's store it in a variable. So I'll say const movie equals that, and then we'll return the movie basically like we were doing before. But before we return it, we'll say movie cache at IMDB ID equals movie. And then we'll do the same check at the top of this function. So if you have already requested this movie, we're just gonna promise.resolve that. Otherwise, we'll make the request. So now we're actually caching the data. So the first time we make the request, it scrapes the website. The second time, it will just serve it from memory. And I could go one step further and like insert it into a database or something like that. I'm not going to do that for now. Look away from the screen. And let's also just add some logs in here. So right here, I'm just going to log serving from cache. And then we'll throw in the search term. And then same thing up here. So serving from cache and throw in the IMDB ID. Cool. So now when we make a search for /Star Wars, notice this is going to take a few seconds because it's scraping the web, but every time after that, it's instant. Notice how like make the request, boom, done. And if we look at our logs, it's serving it from the cache. So the first time we made the request, it had to scrape, and the second time we just send it right back. And then we'll do the same thing with a movie. So that takes a few seconds because it has to scrape, but then the next request, instant, and it served that movie from the cache. So the first time we're hitting their server and we actually are scraping them, but every time after that, it's just serving it from the cache. Cool. That was fun. Last thing, I guess, is I'll just deploy this real quick. So I use a deployment tool called Now. You install it on the command line and you just type now. It supports static sites and it also supports Node.js sites. And my app is basic enough that I should just be able to say now and send it up to the cloud. Let's make sure my package JSON has a start script. I have all of my dependencies listed in there. Yeah, that should be it. Hey, Autumn, thanks for joining. Okay, yeah, so now is pretty sweet. So like from this directory, basically it needs a package JSON. But if I just type now, this will deploy it to the web. And if you check out their website, they tell you how to install it and how to get it set up. You have to log in and stuff like that. But I am now on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and create. So by default, it gives me just like a random URL, but I can give it an alias. So it'll be, if it's not taken, it's already in use by some other account. Let's do IMDB Scraper. That. That's curious. So somebody else has deployed an IMDb scraper at that same URL. And so now we're on the internet. We can go to this URL, and scraping is fun. And if I do /search/Fight Club, take a few seconds, get back some results, and then if I want to actually get the information about Fight Club, I can do movie/ID, and we get back that info. So if I wanted to use this on the front end, I would probably add cores. I think I'll do that. I've been streaming for an hour and 10 minutes. I kind of want to end soon. I think I'll do a basic front end app that just makes a request to this API. So let me install cores. And then inside of our Express app, I'll bring in cores. And then we'll just use it. And now any front-end client can make requests here. So I updated the app. I need to redeploy it. Yeah, I could have added CJ to the name. I'm gonna take this down once I'm done with the live stream. I don't want anybody like using this and then like charges my account a bunch. With Now, they do offer free deployment. So if you sign up on the free plan, the only thing is your source code is available to the world. I actually have the paid plan, so you won't see my source code. But it's really good for just like hobby projects. IMDB Scraper. Isn't it, Dan? Like, So Dan says this is fun. You could literally do this to like any website. It's so much fun. So now I've redeployed. We have cores enabled. If we look at the network tab, when I make a request here, so make a request. If we look at the headers, access control, allow origin star. So now I can actually make this request from a front end. So let me do that real quick. I'll do it in a separate directory. Let's create an IMDB scraper client. Let's go in there. Nope, not there. There. We'll create an index.html file, open it up inside of Atom. Okay, basic HTML file. I'm going to add Bootswatch. If you haven't heard of it, it's pretty sweet. It's themes for Bootstrap. So the default Bootstrap theme looks like Bootstrap, but these all use the exact same classes as Bootstrap, but they just look different, cooler, various styles. Let's use Cyborg. So if you go to preview, you can see what all of your Bootstrap components will look at. I like dark themes. It's my favorite. So you can grab the CSS and let's just pull that into our app right there. We'll add a main area. We'll give this a class of container. And then let's just give the so in the chat, they're wondering why Python is used in scraping examples. I don't know. There might be some popular libraries. I love doing it with JavaScript, especially that Cheerio library. It's extremely similar to jQuery. So if you know jQuery, you can pretty much scrape websites. I'm gonna add a quick style tag. We'll push the body down. So I'll say main has a margin top of 2 ems. And then inside the main, I want a form. Okay, I have these snippets built in. If I do that, I get this giant form. I don't want all of that. I just want a basic input box. So let's get rid of all of that. And so this will be for search. We'll say search. The type is text. The ID will be search. Placeholder will be search for a movie. Yeah, I mean, Python is used a ton in mathematics, really mainly because there's some really good open source mathematics libraries. Server, I mean, I wouldn't say that. So Dan is saying server code in Python. Is that what you're saying? Python can be written more precisely? I would say it's almost the same as JavaScript. It all depends on like the server side framework that you're using. If you're used to Node and Express, Flask for Python is very similar. Your routes have a method, a URL, and a route handler. It's both Express and Flask are based off of Sinatra, which is a Rails framework, but it started this idea of like a very simple backend framework that allows making a backend app for serving up requests. And so CompTiprive, I'm probably not saying that right, but you mentioned using Selenium WebDriver for scraping. So in my example, we're using a website that is basically totally server-side rendered. So by just making a basic request like we're doing in here, we're just making a basic request for the text of the site and then scraping that. Sometimes you're dealing with a website that has JavaScript enabled and like only things will be present after JavaScript actually kicks in. Then it gets a little bit harder because you can't just request the text of the website. You have to actually request, you have to use a headless driver like Selenium, or there's also Phantom.js. And that's essentially a web browser that will actually load the JavaScript code. And then you have access to grab the elements inside of it. A little more complex than this and actually takes up more resources. But if you're scraping sites that are just HTML, this is definitely the way to go. I digress. Okay, we have a form, and I'm going to start up light server. Look at that. So I got a nice little form. I want to be able to say Star Wars, click submit, call my API, list out the movies. Let's do it. So down here, I'm going to add a script source. We're just going to call it app.js. We'll create an app.js. When the page loads, I'm going to get access to the form. So I'm going to do document.query selector the thing that is the form. And I want to listen for the submit event of the form. So I'm going to add event listener for submit. And I'll create this function form submitted. Function form submitted. It'll take in the event. I want to prevent the default action. It's so funny because I teach, and every time I teach this, I stop here and what do? Why is the page refreshing? You got to prevent the default action. So event.prevent default. Default. Okay. And then we'll just log form submitted. Cool. So back to the browser. Here. Look at the dev tools. If I click the button, form submitted. Sweet. So when I click the button, I want to grab the value of this input and send it to the API. So let's just close my server-side code. I could use form data, but I'm just going to get this input. So let's call this search input. Same thing, document.query selector. Grab the thing that is an input. And inside of here, I'll say search term is search input.value. And then let's just log the search term. So when I type Star Wars and I click submit, it logs the thing from the search box. And now we can use that. So I will say get search results. We'll pass in the search term. Let's create a function called get search results that takes in the search term. We're going to use fetch here. So I'm going to return fetch. Let's grab my handy dandy API URL. I think it's IMDB Scrooper, this thingy. So I'm going to be making a request against that. So let's store that in a variable. Base URL is that. And we're going to make a request. When we're searching, it's going to be base URL search/search term. Cool. And then we get back the response. We'll turn that into JSON. And then we get back the results. And for now, we just will log those to the console. So just like that, locally, I'm going to say Star Wars. Click submit, and we get back the results. So this called my API and then now has a bunch of results. Let's add them to the page. Let's look at the Bootstrap docs. I think I might just do list items because I know the thumbnails are like super small. Like if we look at this this image, it's teeny tiny. So let's just do like a list group that has the movie title and then like the image inside of it. So let's do this. And then right below the form, we'll have the list. And basically, we're going to dynamically create those list items. So let's just give this an ID of results. Let's store that in a variable. We'll call it results list is document.query selector. Grab the thing with the ID of results. This will just get returned. And then we'll basically say, so after we call get search results, then we will show the results. And I'll create a function to do that. So function show results that takes in the results. And basically we want to say results.for each. That's going to give us a movie. And we want to essentially append that movie to the results section. Let's do some DOM manipulation. So we'll say list item is going to be document.create element. Create a list item. We'll say list item dot text content. Actually, let's create an image and then append it to the list item. So image is document.create element image. And then we'll set the source of the image to be movie.image, I believe. Let's log those results. Make sure that that's the right property. Star Wars. Yeah, so source should be .image. And then we'll append the image to the li. And then we'll set the li's text content to be movie.title. And then we'll append the li to the results list. So results list dot append child li. Let's see what happens. I'm curious if setting text content will overwrite the children. Let's see. Star Wars. Go. It overwrote. if we look at the actual DOM, yeah. So let's append the image after setting the text content. It'll be weird. The image will be on the right hand side. I don't know. That's kind of weird. We'll append some children to it. So let's do an li that has a div inside of it. That div has an image and then a span. Actually, here. Append the image. And then we'll create a span. And then we'll set the span's text content to be the movie title. And then we'll append the span to the li. Okay. This will do what we want, I think. Yeah, look at that. They've got nice little images and then nice little titles. And I've been streaming for an hour and 23 minutes. I'll maybe go for an hour and 30. Last thing I'm going to do, build one more page that shows the individual movie. So basically, let's make this, instead of a span, let's make it an anchor tag. And then the href is going to be, we'll say movie.html IMDB ID equals movie.imdb ID. Let's see what happens. So search for Star Wars. Okay. And so yeah, now if I click this link, it takes me to /movie. I'll create that page. I'll grab the ID and then make the request to my server to get a single movie. Let's do it. So create a file, movie.html, HTML file. We'll add in the same Bootswatch. Basically all these same styles. So throw that in there. It will have a main section, class of container. We'll add a script here. Let's call this movie.js. And in movie.js, when the page loads, let's log window.location.query. Let's see. So now this page exists. And, I think it's .search. So when this page loads, we're logging the thing in the URL. So basically, so I'll search for Star Wars. If I open this page, it logs that specific ID. If I open this page, it logs that specific ID. So when the page loads, grab the ID and then make the request for that specific movie. Let's do it. I'm going to do a nice little regular expression. So if I do window.location, location.search, we basically want to look for IMDB ID equals and then anything after that. Cool. And that pulls out the ID. So that's what I want. So on this page, let's say IMDB ID equals that at 1, because it's an array. And then we'll just log the IMDB ID. So yeah, grab the ID. And then now let's make the request for a single movie. So let's do create a function called getMovie, where you pass in the IMDB ID. It's going to return a fetch against our base URL. I could create like a shared file. I'm just going to copy this variable into here, because the JavaScript for these two pages are totally separate. So make the request against the base URL, and then it's movie/IMDB ID. And then we'll turn that into JSON. Cool. And then after we get the movie, we want to show the movie. So when the page loads, we'll say get movie with IMDB ID, and then show the movie. And I will create a function called show movie that takes in the movie, and right now just logs it. Okay, this is wrong. That should be like that. Okay. So now when the page loads, yay, it makes the request, it grabs the movie, logs it to the console. And this should work with pretty much any movie. So again, if I search for Star Wars, A New Hope, Last Jedi, Star Wars Solo, A Star Wars Story, Rogue One, each one of these pages, when it loads, logs the data for that specific movie. Now we want to add it to the page. Let's do that. So for that, I will look at the Bootstrap docs. Maybe there's something good I can use, like a card, maybe. We could show like a pretty big card with the movie poster in it, the name of the movie, the summary. I do know there's specific classes for like showing like director some value, something else some value, and it like shows the left thing bold. I forget what that's called though. Let's just search for text utilities, text alignment. I think I want typography. Inline elements. No. I mean, I kind of want... I guess I could show it. I don't want to show a table, I don't think. Because I could have, like, the different properties. I'm spending way too much time thinking about this. But... let's do... I totally forget what they were called. I'm gonna look at the, because I know this was a thing in Bootstrap 3. I just want to find it real quick. Maybe under CSS. Was it under typography? Might be definition. I think it is. Let's search this. Definition. Description list alignment. Yes! Thank you. Mr. Mrs. Galvanize. I really don't know who's watching under the Galvanize account right now. But yes, so this will say like director and then the value, or directors, writers, that kind of thing. Let's use this. Oh, it's just a DTDD. It's good enough for me though. That's all I want. And I think DL stands for, yeah, description list. I found it by searching for a definition, so that's cool. Okay, cool. So when the page loads, we do all this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and grab the main element. That's where I'm going to append all of the movie information. So we'll grab the main. And then we'll create a div. We'll create a section. Document.create element section. We will append that section. So I'll do main.append child section. And now, instead of doing a bunch of DOM manipulation, I'm just going to set the HTML. So I'm going to say section.outer HTML. So this will essentially replace the section with what I'm about to set it as. And so then we're going to do a section. Inside of that, let's have, so do a section class of row. And then we'll have like a div where we'll put the image. And inside of there, I'll have the image. The source is going to be template literal of movie dot, I think I called it poster. Let's log the movie, make sure we can get all the properties. This will have a class of column small 12. So take up the whole row, show that movie, and we'll give this a class of image dash responsive. I might have to look that up. Let's see what happens. So let's search for, let's go to Fight Club. Submit. And then click this. There it is. I think image dash responsive is not a thing. What if I do image dash responsive? No. Let's search the Bootstrap docs. Responsive images. Image dash fluid. Ah, that's a new Bootstrap thing, I guess. Bootstrap 4. I'm really familiar with Bootstrap 3. Do I have to set the parent? This isn't working. Let's look at the dev tools. My hope is that this image takes up the whole row, but let's see what we're doing here. So got a section, a class of row. Did I do the right row classes? So column small 12, that takes up the whole thing. I see max width. I actually want to set width to 100%. Yeah, it's kind of pixelated. That's okay though. I'll just create a custom class. Lame. If something exists, you guys let me know, but for whatever reason, do image has a width of 100% and a height of auto. So now when the page loads, cool, full image. Right above the image, let's throw the title. So that's just going to be movie.title. So right here, let's just throw an H1. That's the only thing about writing my HTML like this. I don't have snippets. There might be a plugin for Atom that gives you snippets inside of template literals, though. Movie.title. Unless undefined. Cool. That's not true. Did I spell title? Lowercase title. Fight Club. There is the text alignment properties. I want to make everything centered, or at least this thing centered. Text dash center. So on the H1, we'll give it a class of text center. Cool. No, not cool. Does it only work on paragraphs? It has the class. Text align center important, but it's not centering. Oh well, I won't worry about that. Below that is where we're going to use those description lists to throw in all of the other details. So we want a description list like this. That's going to be, we'll put it inside of a div because the div itself will be full width. Column small 12, so take up 12 columns. There's all of that. I'm not going to use all of it, but we'll look at it for a second. Basically, I just want and we'll do this. So let's look at all the properties we have. So we have the, let's throw the rating. And then right there, I'm just going to throw movie.rating. Rating R. Kind of don't like how that looks. Disappointed in myself. That's fine. Let's just throw a bunch of properties on there. Let's do a fun thing though. So notice this is going to get really repetitive because I'm going to do movie.rating, movie.plot, all that kind of stuff. We're going to do this dynamically. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to create an array of basically properties that we want to show. So let's call this properties. We'll do rating. What else do we want? We want the runtime. Well, let's do that. I'll do this for now. We'll maybe correct it later. So rating, we want runtime. We want date published. We want the summary. I'm curious the difference between summary and storyline. I think storyline was like written by like a contributor, and then summary is just like a general summary. So we'll do summary, storyline. We'll do I think that's it. So we'll take these things, and essentially we're going to map over them and create a bunch of these DTDDs. So let's do properties. Actually, we'll reduce it. We'll reduce it to a big string of DTs and DDs. So we're going to reduce this. Let's call this the HTML, and then we're going to have the individual property. I'll use a fat arrow. And so let's say description HTML is equal to this. It starts off as an empty string, and we're going to return basically this for each thing. So this will be just one big template string, and we'll say HTML plus equals that, and then we'll return the HTML. But we want this to be the property, and we want this to be movie at that property. And then we'll just throw this description URL or HTML right about here. Okay, let's see what happens. So now when the page loads, we get rating, runtime, date published, summary, storyline. It's fun. That was easy, huh? Let's fix this. So instead of just the properties, because I want this to be like capitalized, I want this to be a little more custom. So let's say the property is that, and the title is rating, and then the not that property is runtime, and the title will be runtime. I guess. I don't know if that's a compound word. Same thing for this. So property is going to be date publish. The title will be, let's call it like released. That and that. Quick break. Oh wow, I went a lot longer than I said I was, but I'm almost done. This was fun. And we'll also do summary. Title will be summary, And then lastly, storyline. And the title is storyline. Cool. And so now when I reduce these, this is going to be property.title and then property.property. I should probably give it a better name. Oh well. But now on the left-hand side, it actually gives us the thing. Very cool. Let's add a button up here that goes back to the search page. So just like right at the top here, I'll add a button. Go back to search. And this can just be an anchor tag with an href of /. So I click that, takes me back to the search page. I can search for Big Lebowski. Go. Did I spell that right? Cool. Click it. Give it a second. We get the info. So there's the title, the poster, all the info. Hey, Bob. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, that's great. One thing I'm going to do is format this date. I came across a pretty cool date library recently. You've probably heard of Moment.js, but it has a lot of overhead. It's pretty large. I wouldn't say it's complex, but it does a lot of things that a lot of JavaScript developers don't like. So for one, there's this library called Luxon, which is actually by one of the core developers of Moment. It's a modern library used in a similar way, but I also found this date functions library, which I like, so I'm going to use it. Documentation. Can I find a CDN for it? CDN and download. What? Oh, I guess I have to pass in a version. Let's just go to CDN.js. Date functions. There they are. Let's grab this. And so I'll add this as a script tag right here. Throw that in there. And then over here, let's use it. So if we look at their docs, we want to use format. So, well, actually, first I need to use parse. So I should be able to say date functions.parse, and I want to do that. Let's do it before we map it. So let's say movie.datePublished equals date functions.parse movie.datePublished. Let's see what that does for us. And now we see like this big long thing, but then we can format it. Oh, actually, I don't think I can do that. So let's do this. We'll store it in a variable. So that's one of the things about Moment. It mutates the date, which a lot of JavaScript developers don't like. So this has a bunch of like one-off functions that you have to use individually. So let's call this date. And then I can pass date into date functions dot format, pass the date in, and give it the format. So what format do I want to give it? Let's look for a format. Let's just do the full month, the day of the year with the suffix, I guess it is, third, that st, that kind of thing. So month, day, year, we want the full year. Yeah, let's see that. March 65th, 1998. I think I grabbed the wrong thing. So I don't want, not the day of the week, not the day of the year, the day of the month. Sorry. So this should be DO. March 6th, 1998. Cool. All right. Can Can I turn on super chat for fan support? I don't know what that means, Bob. Yeah, I don't know how to turn on super chat. Maybe you can tell me. But I am about to end the stream. Let's do a review of like everything that I just did. Cool, because it was a lot. So let's start at the back end. Basically, I built a scraper that goes to IMDb and scrapes their pages to pull off the data. So let's look at that code in Atom again. And so I have a basic Express app that is using those scraper functions that I built to basically accept a request and then scrape the IMDb and send back the result as JSON. So I have a route that says you can search for a title. This will use my scraper to search the scrape the page of the IMDb search page, and then give you back an array of movies. And then I have another route where you can pass it a specific IMDb ID, and that will scrape the movie page to grab all of its information. If we look at the actual scraping code, I'm using node fetch to make the request and cheerio to parse it. So basically, I make the request to an actual page that returns HTML. So like this URL here, and then throw some search term on the end, is the actual IMDb page with all of the results. But then I take that HTML. So this makes the request to that page. I then take that HTML and load it into Cheerio. So Cheerio is a server-side library that basically implements the jQuery API. So inside of my server-side code, I can use selectors on this HTML to pull out the things that I want. So when I make the request to the search page, I pull out each individual result because they all have that find result class. I then pull out their image, their title, and their IMDb ID, and then create a little object that has those properties and then push it into an array. So when we make the request to our API, I think it's IMDb scraper /search/Fight Club. It scrapes that page and then creates this JSON object, which we can now use basically in any app. The other function I wrote was to scrape an individual movie. So you pass in the IMDb ID, and then it requests the individual movie page. So for instance, a page like this. And then it pulls out the title, the poster, the rating, the runtime, the genres, the plot, the directors, the writers, the stars, all that stuff. And so this has some more code in it, but it's the same thing. So make the request to the page, get back the HTML, load it into Cheerio, and then just use DOM selectors to pull things out. So pull the title out, grab the text. I had to do something special here because you'll notice the title also had that year on the end of it. I just wanted the title area. Get the rating, get the runtime, grab all of the genres, date published. Essentially, these are just selectors that I could actually run on the page itself, which gives me back information, so that's the rating. But then, at the end of it all, I just create one nice big object with all those properties that I pulled out, and then send that back to the user. So if you then make a request to /movie/that ID, it'll give you back a JSON object that represents that page. We scraped all this stuff out of it. So that's the back end. I added some simple little caching here. So this is just an object, and whenever you initially make that first search request for something you haven't searched for before, I put it into that object where the key is the search term, and then the value is the result or the array of movies. And then same thing for a movie. So in its cache, I put the key is the ID and the value is the movie. So the next time a request comes in for that same thing, instead of scraping the page all over again, I just immediately serve it back from the cache. And that makes it pretty fast. So because I've requested Fight Club before, it just comes back instantly. It doesn't have to scrape the page again. And then I made a front end for it. So the main page just has a nice little search box. When we submit that search form, we make a request to the API that I created, basically the scraper. we get back all of the results and then add them to the page as list items. So like when we're searching for Fight Club, we get that. But on the front end, it looks like this. So if I search for Fight Club, it makes the request out to that endpoint. It's kind of ugly right now, but it does show each of the little posters and then a link to the movie itself. And then I built a separate page where when you click on an individual movie, it calls our endpoint to get the information about a specific movie and then adds that to the page. And of course, this is pixelated. I could probably find a better image, but that's okay for now. And then adds all of the information that was coming back from the API. Whew. That was a lot. That was so much fun, though. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. A quick reminder, if you check me out on Coding Garden. Obviously, you're already there, but Coding Garden. I do have a video that says request for videos. That has a link. Wait, where are we at? Go back. That has a link to a poll. And if you have any requests for videos you'd like me to make or live streams, please add them there. Also, please remember to subscribe. I can't make money until I get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you like what you see, subscribe, tell your friends. I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Any last questions in the chat? Also, thanks everybody for tuning in. Super fun to interact in the chat. And just real quick, I'll push this code up to GitHub so you guys can all have access to it. I'll throw links to the code in the description of the video. But other than that, here I am. Look at that. And here's this. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching. See ya.